Hi, I am Mrs. McMurtrey, and I am going to read Double Trouble in Walla Walla by Andrew Clements. Double Trouble in Walla Walla. This is a tongue twister, so I'll try my best. It was an ordinary Monday morning in Walla Walla until Lulu raised her hand in class. Mrs. Bell, I feel like a nitwit. My homework is all higgly-piggly. Last night, it was in tip-top shape, but now it's a big mishmash, Mrs. Bell said. Nitwit, higgly-piggly, mishmash? Lulu, stop that flip-flop chitter-chatter, or you'll be in double trouble. Lulu said, but I'm not trying to flip-flop chit-chat. I just have an itty-bitty problem with my homework. Mrs. Bell scowled. All right for you, Lulu. If you're going to shilly-shally and dilly-dally with all this fancy-schmancy yak-yak, then you'll just have to trot down to the principal's office. Mrs. Bell hurried Lulu down the hall, and they burst into the principal's office. Hee-hee, my, looky, blah, blah, yak, shh, come. Mr. Thomas said, what's all the hubbub about? Mrs. Bell said, Lulu's been trying to razzle-dazzle me with some kind of lippity-loppity jibber-jabber, and now I'm all helter-skelter myself. Mr. Thomas raised his eyebrow. Tut, sounds like a silly-willy hocus-pocus to me. Mrs. Bell's mouth dropped open. She pointed to the principal and said, Eeka-freeka! Lulu's got your tongue all topsy-turvy, too. Now, don't get the jim-jams, Mrs. Bell. Let's give the nurse a yoo-hoo. Mr. Thomas picked up his phone and said, Mrs. Carter, I'm going to pitter-patter over to your office. Okie dokie. All three went across the hall to the nurse's office. Mr. Thomas said, howdy doody, Mrs. Carter. We're a little wacko-wacko. Lulu's got us talking this sing-song clap-trap, like we're cuckoo. Mrs. Carter smiled at Lulu and said, fiddle-faddle, Lulu and I are palmsy-walmsies. She wouldn't try that kind of phony baloney tutti-frutti flim-flam. Lulu and her teacher and the principal stared at the nurse. Lulu said, wowie zowie. Mrs. Bell said, jeepers creepers. And Mr. Thomas said, holy moly, you're in the same hodgepodge we are. I'd better give the superintendent a jingle-jangle. Chop, chop. Wait one ding-dong tick-tock, shouted the nurse. If you chit-chat with the bigwig, then he'll yak-yak like Lulu, too. If we're not very hush-hush about this, there could be a mongo brain drain, and everyone in Walla Walla will be talking like a herky-jerky ding-a-ling. Then the nurse turned to Lulu. Lulu, let's get to the nitty-gritty. When did all this mumbo-jumbo start? Lulu gulped. She said, in English class, I had an itsy-bitsy problem with my homework, and then zip-zap, Mrs. Bell said, talking like this was a no-no. The nurse looked over the top of her glasses at Lulu. Something like this would not just happen willy-nilly. Now, Lulu, think extra hard and tell me what you did yesterday. Well, said Lulu, it was really a humdrum day. I was practicing ballet in my tutu when my little brother Bobo asked me to play on the teeter-totter. We seesawed until Bobo slipped off and got a boo-boo and started to boo-hoo. Mama and Papa came running pell-mell, so I went inside and splish-splashed in the rub-a-dub tub, and then hip-hopped into my cuddly-wuddly Betty-Betty. I said night-night to Mama and Papa and Boo-Boo and fell asleep in a snip-nap. That's all I did, honest. What do these say, Brennan?
Uh-oh. Arf, arf, meow, meow. Boo-boo. Boo-boo. Wah, wah. No, Bobo.
Bobo. Mrs. Carter said, Lulu, it seems to me that you've opened up a knock'em, sock'em, wibble, wobble word warp. I usually don't believe in this kind of hoodoo, bunko, junko, but if it was going to happen anywhere, it probably would happen right here in Walla Walla. Mrs. Bell said, let's not quibble-quabble, Mrs. Carter. I'm getting the heebie-jeebies from all this razzmatazz. What can we do?
Go.
We should say all the rootin'-tootin', crinkin', woolly-bully words we can think of. Maybe that will clear the air and close the warp. Worth a try? Asked Nurse Carter. Mr. Thomas said, aye, aye. Mrs. Bell said, let's do-si-do. And Lulu said, uh-huh. Nurse Carter closed the door to her office. Then she turned around and said, Lulu, let's get this harem-scarum show on the road.
Oh.
Think I can do it, Grayson?
Yeah.
Lulu stood up and blurted out, ticky-tacky, knick-knack, coochie-coochie-coo, hubba-hubba, roger-dodger, ooey-gooey-goo. Mrs. Carter cleared her throat and said, hugger-bugger, hobnob, pitter-patter, bon-bon, wishy-washy, swish-squash, handy-dandy, mishmash. Shh. Mr. Thomas closed his eyes and started slowly, that picked up speed. Eensy-binsy, choo-choo, teeny-tiny, hurdy-gurdy, roly-poly, ragtag, hurly-burly, riff-raff, rumble-tumble, hip-hop, teeny-weeny, pop-top, namby-pamby, hippy-dippy, hoity-toity, hot-shot. And then Miss Bell stood up and took a deep breath. Pop, pop, vroom, vroom, honk, honk, zoom, zoom, zag, zig-zag, clank, clank, slam, bam, bitter, bitter, ring-a-dingy, cling, clang, ring-a-ding, boing, boing, ring-a-ling, zing, zing, bing, bang, bong, never, never, wigwam, turkey, lurkey, tom, tom, tootsie, wootsie, tittle, tattle, tee-hee-hee.
Listen.
I'm not done yet. And then without warning, words flooded the air. Fuzzy wuzzy, fuddy duddy, loosey goosey, lovey dovey, kissy kissy, huggy huggy, rinka dinka doo, gaga, rah rah, go go, so so, fro fro, go goo goo, poo poo, woo woo, rinky dinky, arf arf, argy bargy, woof woof, boogie woogie, bow wow, super duper, pooper scooper, clippity cloppity, huppity hoppity, clackety clackety, rackety rackety, blah blah blah, ba ba ba, ha ha ha, clip clop, drip drop, clack clack, rick rack, eager beaver, lucky ducky, comfy dumpy, fat cat. Hee haw, tweet, tweet, chirp, chirp, cheep, cheep, cluck, cluck, quack, quack, yuckity, yucky, yuck. Bozo, yo-yo, heyday, mayday, hokey pokey, hanky pinky, goody goody, yum yum, yummy yummy, tum tum, gimme gimme, gobble gobble, jelly jelly, dum dum. Voodoo, boob tube, moo moo, poo poo, clang clang, yin yang, ching ching, wing ding, pow wow, cow tow, peg leg, jet set. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, better, hadda, oughta, ship shape, sump, pump, achy breaky doodad. Fee-fi, my, rag-bag, tie-tie, beep-beep, ho-ho, paw-paw, doo-doo, root-a-toot, zoot-zoot, looky-looky, local-yokel, Georgie-porgy, hunka-munka, penny, henny-penny, Humpty-Dumpty. And then, suddenly, silence. Lulu, Mrs. Bell, and Mr. Thomas slumped into chairs, and Mrs. Carter flopped onto the cot against the wall. Was it over? No one dared to speak.
No.
Lulu whispered, Mrs. Carter, may I please have a drink of water? Mrs. Carter sat up and said, Of course you may, dear. Mr. Bell smiled weakly at the principal and said, You were magnificent, sir. And Mr. Thomas perked up and smiled at everyone. He straightened his tie and said, I think we've done it, people.
People.
Mrs. Carter sat down at her desk and went back to checking her posture records. Mr. Thomas walked across the hall to his office and went back to the letter he was writing. Lulu followed Miss Bell down the hall and soon had her English homework all straightened out. And after English, it was just an ordinary Monday in Walla Walla.
Done.
Bye-bye, Miss Ding Dong.
Bye-bye.
Ta-ta, Lulu.
Rock.
Now I need a drink of water.